Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating your name and city of residence. Seeing no one, at this time I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Tonight's meeting consists of full body, myself, Chair Councilor Cruz, Councilor Di Natale, Councilors Boschman, Councilor Schultz, and Councilor Fleming. I invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, so please approach the podium. Identify yourself by name and city of residence and the agenda item on which you'd like to speak, and you may speak on it for no more than 2 minutes. Seeing no one wishing to speak, we'll move on to our agenda. There's a vote to approve the minutes from previous meeting, October 26th. So I have a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a summary, a brief summary of the minutes of October 26th?
Sure. Would Councilor Fleming like to do that since she was chairing that meeting?
It would have come through email.
Okay. I think
You print copies of it, right, the minutes, Nick?
I did not print off copies. I'm sorry, I should have.
I think
On the website.
We can I'll withdraw my thing, we can approve it the next meeting.
I can make sure to print off copies for everyone for next
Oh,
meeting.
that's right. I believe it. Go ahead. I withdraw my question.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor. So I have a motion again.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. Seeing no one against, I'll take this into unanimous consent. All right. Moving on to the next item on our agenda. Councilors Squalia and Van Hazinga to install a berm at 405 Blossom Street from the driveway to the existing storm drain to mitigate water intrusion into the landscaped area and sidewalk approximately 50 feet. Request DPW review height of driveway apron as may need to be raised up to direct water flow towards storm drain. Councilor Van Hazinga is here to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a situation at the intersection of Ross and Blossom Street where there's a nice storm drain right at the corner, except there's no effective berm leading up to the storm drain. So all the water pools in the yard and the side of the street. And this area of Blossom Street is has relatively narrow travel lanes, no shoulder. So it's obstructions into the travel lane present problems. We have a lot of trouble with water coming off the hill, forming ice. So it's been an area where if we get a nice berm there, guiding the water to the drain, it'll help keep the roadway clear, and it'll just everything will work a lot better.
Councilor Boschman.
Got a question for the commissioner. Mr. Commissioner, Blossom Street, isn't that slated to be water source separation?
Yeah, that'll be in one of the upcoming downtown combined sewer separation projects. So that's split into 3 phases. Phase 1 is under construction right now. Phase 2 is going out to bid sometime in the next couple of months, and then Phase 3 will be bid out later this fall. So this is Blossom Street, so it'll probably be part of that Phase 3. So anticipated construction would be 2025, 2026.
Oh, it's that far out.
Yeah.
The only reason why I brought that up, Andy, is nothing against you. I understand that, but since we're digging up Blossom Street, and then they're going to pave, are they going all the way up as high as Ross Street when they do that source separation?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I'd have to confirm with
I
plans.
hate to see us spend money, and all of a sudden we're digging it up, and then they're coming back to pave curb to curb, and when they can do it all at one shot, and it'll be permanent. We won't have, especially if they put the Cape Cod, the one on an angle, and it won't rot away or go away after a plow hits it.
So I understand you don't want to duplicate efforts, obviously, but this is going to be a couple of years in the future. It's only 50 feet. It's not that big. It's not that great an investment in asphalt.
All right, I'll make a motion. Since you're my friend, I'll make a motion we accept.
We got a few more people who'd like to speak.
Councilor Di Natale had a question.
Oh, sorry.
I saw Councilor Fleming first, so go ahead, Councilor
Yeah,
Fleming.
I think we should repair the berm. I mean, it's we're talking a year or 2 down the road, and we don't have to put the Cadillac berms, but something just to get it to work right, and not people, because we know it'll probably get knocked down again with another snowstorm, so next year, so I say we do it.
So to be honest, another consideration for this area of Blossom Street is because it's so narrow, it isn't actually restricted for parking no parking on both sides. So it presents a problem when cars park sort of half off the road, half in the travel lane, because it kind of breaks it down to one lane. One advantage, if we get a good berm there, is to maybe dissuade people from parking right at that intersection of Ross Street.
Is that the house right there?
Yeah, so in the handouts that I gave to each of you counselors, the first page shows a Google Street View image from September 23 that shows this area in question. And you can see the white car is actually parked half on the sidewalk, half on the shoulder of the road. So one of the concerns I was going to raise tonight is that if we do install a berm in this location, I'm concerned that it's going to be damaged over time with vehicles driving over it.
Yeah, so my hope was that if there's a good berm at the edge of the roadway, it would keep someone from, like, this is a little sedan. If there's a good berm, it's going to be half on the berm and half stranded. It's not, it won't be an attractive place to park anymore.
Well,
Is it illegal to park on Blossom Street? I know, I still had the floor, kind of took it away from me.
who took it away?
We're still,
It presently is not restricted as no parking, but it's been a constant discussion that it comes up every now and then about issues with cars parking, blocking the travel lane, blocking driveways. So at some point, it may just be made no parking, but we've been trying to avoid that because some residents use it responsibly, some parking get in the way. It's a constant management issue.
I yield the floor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Di Natale for the first time?
Yes, Commissioner, this is an installation, not a repair, so, and I'm new to the committee, but not new to the council, but because I'm here now, I might as well just ask and apologize if this is repetitive, but is there a list of berm installations your office has that's outstanding?
We do have a massive backlog of new berm installations and berm repairs split up between petitions that have been approved over the years and then C-Click Fix reports. There was a period of a couple of years when the former Commissioner Bossonetto was in charge where he didn't do any berms, even the berms that were approved. So we're working through that backlog on kind of an as-needed basis and as we have manpower and trucks and materials available. We're taking care of the ones that are the worst offenders, essentially causing erosion and private property issues and all that. But we're constantly struggling to keep up with that list.
And is the reason for that because, am I to understand that the same crews that do pothole repairs do the berm installations and
Right.
repairs? So if they're out doing potholes, that's priority one, correct? Berms are not as high a priority as pothole repair.
Correct. Typically during the summertime, spring, summer, and fall, we run one or sometimes two hot mix crews. Typically that's all that we can field because we're also busy doing catch basin repairs, manhole repairs, and a whole host of other stuff that the DPW is responsible for. So typically if we have someone installing berms, that takes away from our ability to patch potholes throughout the city. So we pull a crew off of potholes and put them on berms. And berms, it's a little bit more than just putting down the hot mix and using the mold to shape that berm. You have to excavate out the pad for the berm. Typically, you have to put a layer of asphalt down behind the edge of the road so that the berm can sit on top. And then you have to figure out how you're going to tie that berm into either end of where the berm's installed. So in this case, you're looking at tying one end into the driveway apron and the other end into the headstone for the catch basin. If you look at the photo that I handed out, the headstone for the catch basin is actually sunken into the ground and it has only about a half of an inch reveal. So that berm is going to need to taper off down into that headstone, or we're going to need to go in, saw cut, excavate, raise that headstone, and give the berm something to tie into. So there's a little bit of work involved that people don't realize sometimes with installing berms. It's not just putting the berm out there, it's doing the prep work.
Yes, and I'm only asking these questions because I'm not against the petition. I'm just, it goes to either communication or trying to figure out how to best disseminate to the public when things are going to get done. And we have a list of pothole repairs, we have a list of berm installs and repairs. And so while we keep adding to the list and we're not making sizable dents in that list so the list just keeps bigger and bigger, people have to understand that if we don't put it on your list, it's guaranteed to never get any attention.
Right.
The question is, how far away is that attention going to be given? So you said the sewer separation project is how many?
This area is 25 to 26 for that. It's
Okay.
going to span two construction.
So while that is 2 or 3 years out, or 2 years out, is it conceivable to say that that might be how long it takes to put this in?
Potentially, if we work through that backlog, it's probably going to take about that amount of time to get it done. So when I became commissioner, I was handed this massive backlog of berms, and I've been trying to figure out ways to get through the majority of that without taking away from all the other work that we do. So we've had a few discussions. I think one of those discussions being during one of these Public Works Committee meetings about hiring a third-party contractor to assist our Streets Division staff with working through these backlogs of berm repairs, sidewalk repairs, road repairs, et cetera. So that's one of the things that me and the engineering division are working on right now, in addition to some of the road paving contracts that we typically see, is a road repair, a sidewalk repair, and a berm repair contract, so that we can start trying to get caught up to these things, or with all these tasks.
I think that'd be a really good idea, but would that require union agreement to have a third party come in?
It's one of those things, if we were taking away the work from the union, that would be one thing, but because of the massive backlog of work, we're not
Plenty
taking
to do
away
as it
from.
is, yeah.
Right, it's not like we're going to lay off city employees to hire contractors. That's definitely not the case.
Okay.
It'll just free up our time to do other work that's needed elsewhere in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Council Boishman?
No.
You all set?
Mr. Counselor Schultz, want to speak?
I didn't have it, I was just pointing out that Councilor Dean.
Oh, okay. No, I got something to say. Of course.
After you, go ahead.
You know, I looked at this picture, seriously, all joking aside, Andy. They've been parking like that for years. It's not just happening over day. It's years they've been parking like that. They come right up. And let me explain something. A berm is not going to stop them from going over it, because we just put brand-new sidewalks in on B Street. Remember, Nick, you and I knocked on every door, and I made it very clear that if they park their cars on the sidewalk, they're going to get written up. Well, less than a month, they were parking their cars on the sidewalk, going right up over the curb, and that's 6 feet, 6 inches rather, right?
That
6
one's,
inches high?
it varies from 4 to 8,
4 to 8.
but it's on average 6 in most spots.
Okay. And they go right up over. Same thing on Clarendon Street. They go right over. What's the problem here is, more than a berm, is lack of enforcement about having cars parked on the sidewalk. That's the problem we have throughout the city. Councilors, may I point that out to you, Mr. Dan Natale, Councilor Schultz, Melissa Fleming, on the sidewalk. And we got to start sending a message that this is totally unacceptable throughout the city, that they're parking on the sidewalk. You can't get nothing done, and sidewalks are not cheap. You know that. I know that. Summer Street, brand new sidewalk. I can tell you where it was. Not even a month into the road. Car parked up. And the part that bothered me the most is the guy wasn't even from Massachusetts. He lived in New Hampshire. That really bothered me the most. And we had to knock on the door and say, can you please move your car? Really?
Point of order.
It's not a point of order. I'm telling you the facts.
Hold on.
We are discussing
of order.
berms, not parking.
We are discussing parking. I'm discussing parking, and picture shows.
Counselor, we have a
violation.
point of order.
Go ahead.
I'll sustain it. Let's get back to the berm, shall we?
If I might quickly just respond to the concern about the berm and its effect on parking at this particular location. Part of the problem why here in the neighboring stretches of Blossom Street here, that there is so much parking that's half on the street and half not, is that there's not a clear delineation between the street and the side. It's kind of just an open area. So I think it would help enforcement to have a clear line of a berm that if they're half on, half out of the street, they can be ticketed because they're over the curb. If there's a clear defined curb to help, show that they can't be over it. And also, just in terms of the backlog, I fully appreciate that this job isn't going to get done next week, that there's a lot of work that has to be done, but the first step is just get it on the list. And if it ends up waiting till the sewer separation, that's what the workload is. If it gets done sooner, that's great, but the first step is just to get it on the list if it needs to be done.
All set, Paul? Counsel?
Well, you addressed the point of order.
I agree. I sustain Counselor Fleming's point of order.
Oh, you didn't say that to me.
You gotta get your headphones turned off.
All right, it's going to have to be all right, I guess. All right.
Motion to accept.
We've got a couple more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You also,
I'll pull.
you do 4?
I yield the floor for now.
Counselor Fleming?
Actually, Counselor Schultz had his hand up, and he hasn't spoken yet.
Sure. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to talk to the point about enforcement with parking. In Ward 1, my ward, we have a lot of narrow roads, so, and we have a lot of residents that don't have a driveway to park in. They have to park on the street. And as far as enforcement goes, if they don't block the sidewalks, my understanding, they are allowed to pull up a little bit on the sidewalk as long as they don't block the sidewalk and you can walk by the car. So I don't know, that seems to be my understanding of enforcement for parking. So I just want to point that out for Councilor Boschman. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Counselor. As long as the car's not parked on the sidewalk itself, it's illegal to do so. So in this case, you've got that little grass strip between the edge of pave and the start of the sidewalk. I think it's technically legal for the car to pull his or her wheels up onto that little grass strip, just not onto the concrete sidewalk itself.
Counselor Fleming, did you still want to speak?
Just on that point, I had that issue on Blossom Street with parking on the sidewalk, and there are parts on Blossom Street where they are allowed to park on the sidewalk because there is no parking on the lower end of Blossom. But with that, we should just approve this. Chances are the sewer separation is going to happen before the berm gets repaired. So at least we have it on the docket.
Is that a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I second.
One question here. One question in regards to what they're saying. I just want to disagree with them on what they're saying, because I had residents where I don't have a lot of parking either, and in winter months, there was car parked half and half on, and they get tickets. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you who it happened to, my daughter. So, when we say that it's acceptable, what are the rules?
I think if the sidewalk extended all the way out to the curb, then you wouldn't be able to park half on the street, half on the sidewalk. I think in this case where there's a little grass strip, I think you're allowed to park partially on that grass strip, just not on the concrete sidewalk itself. We can certainly take a look at the ordinance and talk to Sergeant Boudreau in the FPD and get his thoughts on the matter too and kind of come to a consensus.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's a good point, that it's kind of a police matter to talk to the police department about, but we do have a motion and a second on the floor. So I'll take this by yeas and nays.
Yep,
Aye.
approved, I guess.
Approved.
Counselor?
Well, I said, yeah, I told him I was going to vote for it.
Okay. Counselor Dentale, is that
I
okay
just
for you
wanted to
down
point
there?
out.
Yes, yes.
All right. It was approved unanimously.
Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, Counselor.
Think nothing of it.
All right. Next on the agenda is 2025-23. Counselor Fleming, on behalf of Dan Saracen of 75 Klondike Ave, to install a berm in front of his property to mitigate flooding from the higher ground across the streets.
So, yeah, so as you can tell from the picture, there is absolutely a berm, and this is located at the entrance of Pierce Farms. So there's a hill in it, and when it rains, and it just goes right onto his property. But with that being said, I was unable to address another issue that he said was going on there since there aren't berms, something caused from the water. And I've been there and I've not been able to see what it is, and I've not been able to get a hold of him to find out what it was. But it might have to piggyback onto this at a later time. So
I took a look at this one. This is a tough situation. So you've got Pierce Farm Road directly across from this property. But this property itself has a paved driveway that's over 110 feet long from end to end. So it's a 110-foot wide curb cut, which is way above what our zoning regulations stipulate the maximum is. I think it's 24 for residential, 36 for commercial. And you've got vehicles that are parked perpendicular to the road in that driveway opening. So it's a little unclear exactly where the resident would like the curb or berm installed. whether it's just along the section that doesn't have the driveway or if it's along the back side of the driveway. So I think we need a little more clarification as to where exactly the resident would like the berm installed. But frankly, I don't think the DPW is going to be able to do a whole lot there unless the property owner changes the configuration of their driveway opening. Because it's almost like their whole front yard is paved, and then you've got the driveway next to the house that goes down to, you know, some of the property in back. So I don't know if it would be possible to maybe meet out there with the property owner and just hear his thoughts. I was hoping he would be here tonight to kind of explain what he's looking for. But that would be my suggestion, just because I think if DPW just goes out there and does something, it's not going to line up with the expectations of the homeowner, just because there's a big area there to handle.
Okay.
Make a motion to hold?
Yep.
Second.
Motion is second. You seeing no objection, we'll take this under unanimous consent. It is held.
All right.
Moving on to the next agenda item, 25-6-23. Councilor Kuchar, on behalf of Brian Ruffiange, to request a berm to be placed from the intersection of Oak Hill to the storm drain just past 394 Franklin Road. Commissioner Erickson?
So this is on the third page of the handout that I provided to you all. So at the bottom of the page, you can see the catch basin in question, and it's about 185 feet from there to the intersection with Oak Hill Road in front of these properties. There's no heavy evidence of erosion or scouring or anything like that, but there is some sediment deposition and whatnot just from runoff naturally, sheeting off the roadway, salting and sanding, etc. So there's no doubt that a berm would help the water flow from Oak Hill down to this catch basin without interfering with the property owner's front lawn. But I will note that Franklin Road in this location is in very poor shape. We're planning to install sidewalks further down Franklin Road in the location of approximately Rheingold School. So I would recommend that when the road is repaved, a berm is placed in this location. But I don't recommend that we place a berm there now. There doesn't seem to be any immediate need. There's no clear indication of major erosion happening. And it would be a significant effort for DPW to go out and install this berm, especially if the road's going to be repaved within the next few years. And I know that it is on our paving list for the next few years.
I make a motion, we accept the commissioner's report.
Council Fleming, did you?
Yeah, I just looking at this, there doesn't seem to be any berms anywhere on this road.
Not in this stretch.
section, yeah.
Maybe once upon a time there was a berm. I think there's a couple areas where the road, you can tell, has been paved and paved and paved over again until it's at the top of that berm elevation. You can see the headstone behind the catch basin. It's only got a couple inches of reveal. So, I think because this area is so flat, it would help to have a berm here. I just don't think it makes sense to install it right now until we're ready to repave the road. I think there's much greater needs elsewhere in the city. There's other areas that are heavily eroded that require berms. This doesn't appear to be one of those locations.
Okay.
Councilor Bushman?
Oh, I'm all set.
Councilor Bushman?
My question to you is, what's the cost of that?
Installing a berm there
Yeah.
along that
From there,
whole,
from that, I know where the house is. From that house there to down Oak Hill Road, like he's asking.
so if we were going to do it in-house and we're just talking about material supplies, it's probably a few $1,000s worth of material, but it's probably about a week's worth of labor for prep and then install on our end. So you figure a crew of 4 guys, they're making $25 to $35 an hour each, times 5 times, I'm not very good at math in my head, but I would estimate probably about $5,000 total with labor costs plus material costs.
Oh, the only reason why I bring it up, because I had a berm approximately that long, and Gary said the cost was going to be approximately $40,000 to $50,000. And that was
For-
on Persian Street.
For 185 feet,
Yeah.
40 to 50,000
Yeah,
sounds
that's what
a
he
little
told
bit
me.
high.
When I brought him up in Persian Street.
That sounds like a relatively high estimate.
Well, that's what he gave me for an estimate. That's why they didn't put it on both sides of the road.
Yeah.
And he didn't even put it in there yet. They're still waiting, and their road is eroding.
I mean, typically, if we're bidding this out to a contractor, you'll see prices for berms in either the ton or the linear foot. It wouldn't be uncommon to see Cape Cod berm priced at like $5 to $10 a linear foot, $10 being on the very high side. So if you're talking $10 a linear foot times 185 feet, $18,500. But again, I think that's on the high side. If we're doing it internally, we save significantly because we're not paying prevailing wages and we're not paying contractors overhead and profit.
I make a motion, we accept what the commissioner says, hold it.
Second?
Motion is second to hold. Any objections? Take this under unanimous consent. All right, on to the next item, 257-23, Councilor Sam Squalia, now Mayor Squalia, of course, to remove the large stump in front of 264 Elm Street. This stump juts into the roadway and is often obscured due to weed overgrowth, causing damage to vehicles trying to park on the streets. Commissioner?
So this one, I did not put a screenshot in your packet, but I did take a ride out there and I looked at Google Street View. So there is a stump and it oftentimes is obscured by weeds kind of growing up around it. So if you look at the Google Street View, you can't really tell there's even a stump there because you've got weeds that are 8 to 12 inches high and it just looks like some overgrowth. But it is there, and I could see people parking on that side of the road potentially not seeing it, damaging their cars, etc. It does stick out into the road about this far. The sidewalk kind of jogs a little bit, and then there's Low Park right there. So I agree that the stump should come out and should be backfilled. There's a couple other stumps in that location on Elm Street that probably should also come out, but this one definitely needs to be removed.
Councilor Boschman?
Hey, Commissioner, if we vote on this tonight and we say yeah, are you gonna take the grinding machine and do that stump? Grind it down to the,
That would be the goal, to use a stump grinder, grind it down. But the other thing we could do is excavate it out and backfill it. So it really depends on time and manpower that we have available. The stump grinder that we do have is relatively old and kind of unsafe. So what we've done recently is we've rented a stump grinder through the Greening the Gateway Cities program. So my goal would be to utilize that program to try to get this stump removed and potentially a tree planted in its place, not necessarily in this exact location, but somewhere else nearby, probably in Low Park.
my concern is this, if you're gonna grind that stump out, and while we're there, why not just take the rest of the ones that are right there on there? Because I hate to see you dig it up, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Elm Street was paved at one time. That's newly paved. Once you start
fairly new.
taking the roots, you're gonna dig it up, and the roots are gonna dig up the asphalt, and now we get another problem.
Elm Street's also part of the combined sewer separation work.
Oh, is it?
That's going to happen within the next 3 years or so. So there'll probably be some sewer trench work installed out there. I mean, we could wait and incorporate it into that project, but if we can get funding through that Greening the Gateway Cities program, that would be a less cost to the taxpayers.
Okay, it's up to you guys. Go ahead and make a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right. Seeing no objection, we'll take this under unanimous consent to approve. It is approved. We have one petition held for review. City Councilor 193-23, City Councilor Andrew Kuchar on behalf of Bev Hoffer to replace the berm in front of 466 Franklin Road to combat runoff from Oak Hill Road.
So this one has been in front of us for a little while. So this is on the 4th page of the packet that I provided you. So you can see the drain that's right out in front of 466. And then you can see in the background that there's quite a distance between there and Oak Hill Road. It's about 525 feet if you run from Oak Hill Road itself down to this berm, which is quite a distance. I agree that when the road's repaved, a berm should be considered here to make sure that water flows from roughly Cleghorn House of Pizza all the way down to this catch basin. It is very flat, and that's a good way to keep the water traveling on the road down to its final destination there at the catch basin. I don't agree that it's a problem that warrants being solved immediately. So if we can prioritize that in line with repaving of the road, I think that would be the best approach. Councilor Schultz did mention that He was contacted by the resident, Bev Hoffer. I still need to meet out there with that resident at some point. I did tell her that I would do that. One thing I'm not sure of, and what I hope to clarify when we meet out there, is I'm not sure if she really was intending for a berm from Oak Hill all the way down to that basin,
I don't think so.
or if, I think more than likely, she's talking about the driveway apron. And if you notice in the picture, there's been a driveway apron installed in the past. You can see the difference in colors of material between the roadway itself, the walkway / beginning part of the driveway, and then the rest of the walkway and the rest of the driveway going into the house. So there's like a 4-foot apron that was installed at some point, and I think it was humped up just a little bit to get the water to flow down to that catch basin. So that is something that I agree would help avoid some of the ponding that she's seeing right at the end of her driveway there. And the goal would be to just get all that water to flow that extra 20 feet or so into that basin.
That's what I think, that's what she needs. Yeah. But, you know, she contacted me, and then of course, I contacted Councilor Kuchar because she was in his ward, so.
So I would suggest modifying the petition to read, replace the driveway apron in front of 466 Franklin Road, and approving that.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Wish to amend, rather?
Motion to
Amend.
amend.
Second.
Second.
Seeing no objections, we'll take that under unanimous consent. So I have a motion on the petition itself. Unless,
I got a question for
go
the
ahead,
commissioner.
go ahead, Counselor.
What else, were you guys doing all that work up there on Oak Hill Road? Did that help to alleviate a lot of this problem?
It helped with the water coming off of Oak Hill Road before Claiborne House of Pizza, but it didn't really help with that last little, like, 200-foot stretch between, I forget what the house number is, but a couple of properties up from Claiborne House of Pizza down to the intersection. That stuff all still kind of flows down to Franklin Road. It's just so flat there that it's tough to get everything to flow the right way. And you've got settling that happens over time and sand that builds up and all that. So we did that curb and sidewalk out in front of Claiborne House of Pizza. We did the crosswalk with the RRFBs, and we did that little basin right there. And it seemed to help move the puddle from in Claiborne House of Pizza's parking lot to the curb line, which is good, I guess. It's out of their parking lot, but the problem still somewhat exists. I think that's something that can be solved by repaving the roadway and making sure that we've got the right crown and longitudinal grade.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you that question. We're gonna make sure when we start hiring guys to pave city streets, that they're done correctly, and they get the right crown and where the water can flow.
Yep.
Because I do know when they did Westminster Hill Road, terrible job up there, especially up by St. Jude Boulevard, there's always a big puddle.
Yeah.
And that was just freshly paved guys. So, and I'm not changing the subject, I'm just letting them know.
Do you know offhand what year that was done?
Um,
Was it 2018?
Yeah, I think Joe Caddy was on the council then, at the very end.
We've had a number of, or a couple different contractors that have held that 3-year on-call paving contract for a little bit. One was PJ Keating, one was PJ Albert.
This one here was PJ Albert, I believe, that
Albert.
did that up there.
Yeah, I mean, we've had issues with contractors on and off. I mean, most of the time they do great work, but once in a while they'll blow a grade here or there and cause puddling issues. Sometimes it's a struggle to get them to come back and resolve those issues.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not finding fault, just making sure that this time here, when we start paving, and I may not be on the council, but if we start paving, it's done right, when people are driving their cars, they're not going through a puddle, and the puddle's there all year round, and then we got ice right there, too. It's even worse, because there's a driveway right there.
Right.
All right, whatever they say, you guys made that motion?
So I have a motion to approve? In a second?
Second?
Seeing no objection, we'll take this under unanimous consent. It is approved. And I have to apologize, we have to go back. My first meeting as chair here, we skipped over an agenda item that I didn't see, and then we'll have the DPW updates as well. So we have a schedule here to vote to approve the meeting minutes for 2024 for the Public Works Committee.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll have to second that one.
Okay. Seeing no objection, we'll take that under unanimous consent. And Commissioner Erickson, do you have any additional DPW updates for us this evening?
I just wanted to walk through, just the snow and ice spending to date. So that's the other handout that I provided, Excel table. So at this point, we're near the end of January. We're almost at the halfway point, or what I would consider to be the halfway point of winter. We've gotten through December and January. We've still got February and March left. And we're approximately halfway through our average budget. So on average, we spend about $1 million per year on snow and ice. Typically, the first $500,000 or so is included with our FY budget, and then we go back and ask for another appropriation about halfway through the year. So we're about at that point right now. We've had a number of storms since November. One was a really large storm. That was the storm that we got at the beginning of January. Very long duration event. The remainder of the storms have been somewhat smaller, but still pesky. And then we had a week or so of sub-freezing temperatures right after one of these events. So that led to a lot of melting, thawing, and then refreezing in the evening time. So we've had to spend a lot of money getting guys out there and treating the roads. Today's a good example of that. We had that drizzle that froze as soon as it hit the roadway. So we've been treating that all day. We brought in contractors to treat, brought in contractors after hours to treat again, just to address all the accidents that were happening all over the city today. So I just wanted to give you an update and let you know where we stand. We do plan to come back in front of City Council and ask for an appropriation for another $500,000 to get us up to that $1 million that we typically are spend over the course of the snow and ice season. And if anyone's got any questions on snow and ice so far this year, please let me know.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm going to talk to him in private because I don't want to embarrass. My words won't be too kind on the snow plow removal.
Okay, I think
The last 3 storms.
we all appreciate that, I think. Does anybody else have any questions?
One other comment I do want to make, probably along the lines of what Councilor Boschman wants to talk about. So we do have a severe shortage of third-party contractors this year. So typically we aim to have about 30 pieces of equipment that are available to us through third-party contractors. This year we have approximately 15, about half of what we need. So between our in-house staff and the third-party contractors, we're able to put out approximately 40 pieces of equipment for any given storm. That's if nothing breaks down, nothing goes wrong, and all of our guys are available to man those trucks. With the storm that we had 2 weekends ago, Leominster had 80 pieces of equipment out while we had 40. And our roads looked the same as theirs, if not better. So I think it's pretty amazing what we're able to do with half the amount of equipment that Leominster is able to use on the streets. Not to say we do a perfect job, not to say that there's roads that don't get missed or skipped or don't receive enough attention, but I'd say we're doing a pretty good job considering what we have to deal with.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilor Boschman?
When you say 30 pieces of equipment, are we using the water department and the wastewater department equipment too to plow our streets?
On occasion, we'll use wastewater's equipment, but we don't use water's equipment.
We don't use water.
We don't use waters. We use one piece of equipment that wastewater owns, and that's typically if one of the wastewater guys is working overtime for us. We've got a call-in procedure where we call in the streets division personnel first, and then we call in cemetery, parks, water, and wastewater personnel based on a sign-up sheet. So those divisions are given an opportunity to sign up. And then within that group, the order in which we call guys in is based on grade, so that's the grade of employee that they are, seniority, and then appropriate qualifications. So we've got kind of a rule book that we need to follow based on the collective bargaining agreement and calling those guys in and utilizing other division personnel. So we're somewhat limited there, but we do have one wastewater guy that comes in and uses their truck pretty consistently. And then we utilize parks trucks as much as we can, and cemetery trucks here and there when we need to.
These guys that you call on, like you say, you have a list to go to. Are they guaranteed day shift, or can you take them and say, okay, we need a second shift?
So we have to go in order that I mentioned for call-ins.
Right, I understand that part.
So the issue there is that the first guys that we have to call in are the guys that hold the CDLs and the hoisting licenses. So if we get to a point where we need to start running a second shift, the guys that we would theoretically call in for that second shift don't have the licenses needed to operate some of the bigger trucks. So we've got to be very careful about how we call those guys in and how we strategize to make sure that we have manpower throughout the storms. One of the other issues that we're running into is that per the collective bargaining agreement, once an employee works 16 hours or more consecutive, then they have the entitlement to the next day off with rest and pay. So if we're not careful, guys will work 16 plus hours and say the entire streets division does that. That means the following workday, we don't have anyone to come in and do any of the cleanup work that we need to do. So we've got to walk this very fine line between following that rule book and making sure we have enough guys available throughout the storm and then the following day or two to handle cleanup. And that's where contractors come in too. So those third-party contractors can help relieve our guys that have worked 16 or more consecutive hours and are out that next day, or assist some of the first and second shift call-ins.
So what you're saying to me as a counselor, then when I accepted this budget, I really kind of screwed up. Because they get paid time and a half, right? And they get paid double time after, they get paid straight time 8, 4 hours of time and a half, and then 4 hours of double time. And then on top of that, after working a 16-hour shift, they get paid how much for that next time off?
Well, they get the following workday off with rest.
With rest, with pay.
But the time and a half versus double time, that depends on when the storm actually takes place. So if it's during Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, that's normal hours. So that's just straight time.
All right.
If it's between 3 p.m. and 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, that's time and a half. Sundays and holidays are double time. So most of the storms that we've had in January happen to span Saturday, Sunday, Monday, including one holiday. So they cost more than storms that happen during the regular weekday.
All right.
Councilor D'Antelli?
Commissioner, you said that we're half of where we want to be for contractors. Is there a reason?
I think part of it is rising costs in fuel and vehicle repairs and insurance rates, and it's not making it worth some guys' while to be contractors for the city. I think part of it is the condition of our roadways. The roadways beat up plows, they beat up drivers. If you've ever plowed, especially on a really pothole-ridden road, it's almost like getting into a series of accidents all night long for 12, 14, 18, 25, however many hours at a time. So it wears on you, and if you don't want to do it anymore, then that's just another reason to throw in the
You
towel.
said the rate. We set the rate, right?
We do set the
And
rate.
is our rate not competitive?
Our rate is competitive with surrounding towns.
Yep.
It's not competitive with the state. So someone that plows for the state makes substantially more money than plowing for us or Leominster or anyone else around here.
So then the rate would not necessarily likely be the driver of why we have a shortage?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of times, between vehicle cost, fuel cost, insurance costs, the profit isn't really there. I mean, we have to be sensitive to what we can afford too. We can't just jack up the rates and make everyone make the same amount of money as the state workers. The state has a very high standard when it comes to equipment too, so they make sure that the trucks meet a certain specification. We're a little bit more lenient with that.
So the question then becomes, for someone watching out there, as you mentioned Leominster, why would other cities or towns not have this same problem then?
They do.
They do. Okay, so when you said Leominster had 80 pieces of equipment,
So Leominster has the benefit of one of their major contractors is PJ Albert. PJ Albert has a huge fleet of trucks. They
Okay.
plow for the city of Leominster. They have trucks signed up with us for snow hauling only, but we've asked them to switch over to Fitchburg, come to the dark side, and we haven't had any success so far.
are we trying to go after any other similar sized companies like that?
we've reached out to everyone under the sun that we can think of. You know, all
Probably
the
already-
local landscaping companies, construction companies.
Probably already strapped, right? They already have contracts or,
Most of them either have contracts or they don't want to deal with municipal, and they've got a lot of large commercial accounts that pay a little bit more, and it's just more profitable for them.
I didn't even consider things like insurance, condition of the roads, things like that, because, you really think about it, these guys are private companies or private entities on their own, by themselves, so entrepreneurs, and damage to their vehicle, or even if the road wasn't that bad, just the risks involved, like you said, the insurance, I didn't even factor in those things, but hopefully did we have this issue last year or the year before? Is this kind of a new occurrence?
We've been on a steady decline as far as numbers go over the past several years, and that coincides with problems that are seen elsewhere in the state. This year we had Davenport drop off. They were a big contractor that had a lot of big vehicles for us. And then we made a conscious decision not to bring back one or two contractors that we've had problems with in the past, both in performance and honesty and other issues. So one of the things I'm trying to do with DPW is if we're setting expectations for our own staff, that we should have those same expectations for our contractors as well. So we're trying to weed out the bad apples, so to speak, even if it leaves us a couple of trucks short.
So is it fair to say then that probably the pandemic is driving a lot? Well, I mean, sounds like this all started to nosedive when the pandemic struck, and with inflation, higher insurance rates, higher costs, probably is having an effect. And you said it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's deceiving, without digging into the weeds, as to a neighboring city or town having far more of a fleet than we do, because they could have one or two contractors that have a score of trucks.
Right.
And we just don't have the luxury of having them on staff. So, okay, thank you. You answered my questions. Thank you.
Yep. And one other thing I'll mention too is that the contractors that we do have this year, we've got Longley, they're a big one. Latanzi with Hollis Hills, they plow for the state, but we've been able to convince them to sign on with us so that when they're done plowing for the state, they come plow for us. And same with Tandem Construction. They've got a number of trucks that plow for the state, and then once they get cut loose from the state, they'll come help us out. And having Hollis Hills and Tandem this year has been incredibly helpful. But the goal is to try to get some of the bigger contractors that have a lot of trucks in and on board. So, next year we'll take a look at the rates, see where we are competitiveness-wise, and adjust accordingly.
Just one more question. So are these contracts we enter into with these companies or these individuals, are they on a year-to-year basis?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
annual. We put out a solicitation every year. We've actually got documents up on the website right now, so if someone does, want to sign a truck up, they still have the option to do that.
So people can still go through the application process right now and, okay,
Yep. Yep.
thank you.
Councilor Schultz?
Yeah, my question was along the lines of Councilor Di Natale's. I was just wondering what the outlook was for the next snow season, if we can attract some of these bigger contractors or not. And it has to do with rates and, what's happening with some of these other area towns, I would imagine.
Right. It does. I mean, we can try raising rates and see if that attracts more contractors. We also have to be cognizant of the budget. On average, we've allocated $1 million every year for this, but we've also seen rising labor rates internally. Our DPW staff make more than they did, 5 years ago. Contractor rates are going up, fuel rates are going up. The price of salt has increased substantially. So there's a lot of increases in cost, and we've done a decent job of trying to keep the budget still level at that $1 million. We are seeing warmer winters with less snowfall overall, so that helps kind of balance things out a little bit and keep that $1 million consistent across the board.
Thank you.
Councilor Bushman?
My question to you is this. When I worked out in Medford, I was talking to some people out there that were truck drivers. And some of the towns out there, before the season starts, they get the crew already, like you already said. But they would send the crew out to study the streets, their section of town that they would have. And they would pay them to ride around, even though they're not pushing snow, to check the streets so they know what they're getting into and how it should be done. Do we do that here? Because I heard different stories. That's why I want to talk to you after.
So traditionally, we have not really done that. This year, prior to the big storm in early January, the superintendent gave guys their route assignments and had them go out and take a look at their routes and drive around a little bit just to get familiar. I think we can do a better job with training, and I think we can do a better job with holding our contractors accountable for making sure they do a good job. We're paying them a lot of money, so
Yes, I know we are.
we need to do a better job in making sure they follow through. One of the challenges that we have during any given storm is staffing. We don't have enough DPW staff to try to keep track of all these contractors. We have to have most of our guys out actually in plow trucks plowing routes. If we had another, say 3-4 guys, it would be helpful to have those people monitor the performance of the contractors and even internal staff. So that there's a few different things that we can do to improve, and certainly before next year rolls around, we're going to look at everything that happened this year, figure out what went well, what didn't go well, and try to make the adjustments we need. We can also do a better material management is an issue. I can't tell you how many times I've told guys to plow a road up, plow back the other direction, and then treat. But we still see guys going out there, the sander's spinning even while they're plowing, and they just plow that product right off the road. So trying to keep a tighter control on our performance is going to be key to the success too.
All right, we have the floor, because he wants to go home, and I got to talk to him before he goes.
So motion to adjourn?
Just a sec.
Oh, sorry.
As we see some changes for the viewers watching. First, Commissioner Erickson, thank you so much for the diligence and the photographs and all the work you're doing. I do just want to acknowledge the previous chair, Councilor Fleming, for the wonderful job she did chairing this committee before me for Public Works, and thank her for her support, and I'll take that motion.
Oh, my word, what a brownie you are.
Point of order. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Takes on a unanimous consent.